Let me talk to the one who's just now catching their breath, who's staring at the ceiling, somewhere between heartbreak and clarity, realizing, This ain't love. It's not safety. It's not even kindness wrapped in confusion. No, this is a haunting, a spirit in disguise, a familiar face with eyes that never truly saw you. And that weight in your chest. It's your soul finally recognizing the truth. You've been living next to a narcissist, not a partner. Not someone who held your heart, but someone who studied it. Only to use it as a mirror for their own illusion. And listen, we're not talking about someone who takes too many pictures or brags at dinner. That's surface noise. This runs deep. This is psychological warfare dressed in charm. This is a master of manipulation who turns reality into a stage and casts you as the background. Before you even knew it, you stopped being you. You became a reflection. A tool. A shiny piece in their carefully curated image. And friend, that's not love. That's captivity. That's a slow unraveling of your own voice until you whisper things you never believed, just to keep the peace that never stays. Let's be real, you tried. You gave your kindness like water in the desert, thinking maybe, just maybe, they'd bloom. Maybe love could reach them. Maybe if you softened your voice, shrank your needs, showed up better, brighter, more patient, they'd finally see you. But they don't want to see you. They want to feed. Because the narcissist doesn't want connection. They want control. And the more you give, the more they consume. It's a bottomless pit dressed in romance. And that's why it hurts. That's why you're tired. You've been pouring into a vessel with no bottom, praying your love could fill what only truth can heal. I've looked into the eyes of the ones left behind. The givers, the faithful, the gentle warriors. I've heard their voices tremble with guilt they never earned. Why didn't it work? Why wasn't I enough? And the answer burns, but it frees. Because it was never about you. You were never the problem. You were the solution they didn't want. The mirror they couldn't bear to face. You weren't losing your mind. You were in the middle of a storm that someone else created. You were breathing smoke while they stood outside holding the match. And when reality bent, when the world turned gray, and you couldn't tell up from down, that was by design. That wasn't your weakness. That was their power play. And shame, oh, shame was their favorite weapon. They learned your heart like a map. They found every scar and called it a flaw, every soft place. They turned hard with silence or sarcasm. Because when you feel small, they feel powerful. But let me tell you, they're not powerful. They're hollow. And the roar they carry, it's just a distraction from the echo they can't silence inside. You see, the narcissist fears their own truth. They put on crowns made of cardboard and shout to be seen. Not because they are something, but because they're terrified they're not. And your light, it exposes that emptiness. That's why they attacked it. But hear me now. This isn't about pity. This isn't about understanding them so deeply that you sink again. This is about you. About rising. About reclaiming the voice that whispered, this isn't love, and trusting it was right all along. This isn't just escape. This is resurrection. This is you breath by breath, calling your spirit back from exile. You don't owe them your healing. You don't owe them your silence. And you sure don't owe them your guilt. Let it be said, their cruelty was never proof of your lack. Their abuse wasn't evidence of your flaws. It was projection. It was them spilling their poison and blaming you for the burn. You ever seen someone trapped in a virtual world, flailing at invisible enemies? That's the narcissist. Swinging at ghosts, lost in illusions, while you stand there catching blows for battles you didn't choose. But this next part, it's holy. Because what made you a target wasn't your weakness. It was your strength, your goodness, your belief in love, your endurance. You were chosen not because you were broken, but because you're strong enough to hold fire and still walk forward. Don't confuse their chaos for your calling. And don't you dare carry their shame. That mess was never yours. You were tricked into cleaning up a storm someone else brewed. And let's remember Job. Everyone talks about the trials, the suffering. But look at his friends. They tried to explain his pain, to blame him, to make sense of the senseless. Sound familiar? You lived that. People around you tried to fit your story into a box that didn't hold truth. But your pain wasn't proof of failure. It was evidence that you were too sacred to stay in something so small. Let me say it clear. And let it shake something loose in you. You can rise. You can walk out of the wreckage with fire in your eyes and peace in your hands. There's life after the narcissist. Not just survival, not just making it through, but radiance, clarity, wholeness born from battle. And that is where your power lies. Not in proving them wrong, but in remembering you were right to begin with. Let's sit down for a second, heart to heart, and can talk about something sacred: boundaries. Not the kind built from bricks and bitterness. No, I'm talking about soul lines. Invisible but mighty. Lines that say, this is holy ground, and not everyone gets to tread here. See, people misunderstand boundaries. They think they're about pushing others away, about building walls. But boundaries are doors with locks that you hold the key to. They're not meant to imprison you. They're meant to protect what's precious in you. The narcissist doesn't see it that way though. Oh no, boundaries to them are blasphemy. Why? Because boundaries mean you're waking up. You're stepping out of their spell. You're claiming your name again. And that shakes the very empire they built on your silence. The narcissist can't stand limits. Not because they don't get them, but because they do. And limits threaten the illusion they've worked so hard to maintain. So when you dare to draw a line, they don't just cross it, they erase it, they bulldoze it with charm, with guilt, with twisted logic, and sometimes, with nothing more than a smile that says, "Zay, you won't leave, you never do." But here's the truth: when you draw a boundary, you're not being cruel. You're being courageous. You're saying yes to your worth. You're saying yes to your sanity. You're saying, this heart still beats, that I'm not handing it over anymore to someone who treats it like spare change. That kind of yes. It's revolutionary. And yes, it's terrifying. Because choosing yourself will often look like betrayal to those who only benefited from your self-abandonment. And let's not water this down. This isn't just about relationships. This is soul work. Spiritual territory. This is the place where faith gets forged in fire. Where you stop praying to be rescued, and start realizing the rescue has been rising in you all along. I know someone's wondering, but aren't we supposed to forgive? Yes, absolutely yes. But let me be clear. Forgiveness is not a free pass back into bondage. A forgiveness isn't pretending evil never happened. It's letting go of what's poisoning you, so it doesn't keep burning holes in your chest. A forgiveness doesn't mean you walk back into the lion's den and call it holy. It means you stop carrying a monster's shame on your back and call it yours. You forgive so you can breathe again, not so the narcissist can keep writing the story. And this new age idea floating around, this myth that spiritual people can stay in relationship with anyone if they're just evolved enough. That's not enlightenment. That's entrapment with a halo on top. That's suffering wrapped in sacred language. And it's the kind of thinking that keeps beautiful souls chained while the narcissist plays saint in public and serpent in private. Let's go back to the garden, the beginning, the tree, the fall. Everyone talks about rebellion, but few talk about discernment. At that moment humanity knew the difference between good and evil. That knowledge, that survival, that's wisdom. And that's what you need now. Not more tolerance, not more waiting, but discernment. Because the narcissist, they don't throw punches. They build puzzles, mazes, twisting corridors that make you question your own eyes. And just when you think you've found your way out, they flash that smile. The one that says, see, I can still be sweet. That's the bait. That's the hook. That's the performance. Let's call it what it is. It's not love. It's a sales pitch. A rerun of a scene that was never meant to last. The beginning wasn't real, it was a trap. A costume party. Smoke and mirrors dressed as a soulmate. And Lord, how many hearts have tried to walk backward? How many gentle warriors have said, if I can just get us back to how it started. But hear me, what started this was a lie, a strategy, not a love story. And no matter how hard you try, you can't rewrite chapter 1 when the author never planned a happy ending for you. I've sat with those stories. I've wept beside souls trying to make sense of something senseless. And what I've seen time and time again, is this: people try to make meaning out of ashes. That they rewrite themselves as the problem. They say, if I just loved better, maybe they'd be different. But no. You can't heal someone who's addicted to harm. You can't offer a bridge to someone who's hell bent on setting fire to the shoreline. And don't get it twisted, abuse doesn't always scream. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's a look. A sigh. A shrug. It's the slow, steady rewrite of your own reality, until you don't recognize your voice anymore. It's death in 1,000 whispers. That's why healing isn't a straight line. It's a wild, sacred journey. You crawl out. You shake, you fall, and one day you run, not away from them but back to you. Call it what Jung did? Individuation. The coming home to the real self. The soul before the storm. The version of you that existed before you were edited, silenced, reshaped for someone else's benefit. Now this is the part where the ashes start to shift. where the dust begins to settle and something holy starts rising. This isn't just about breaking free. It's about coming home. To the you that was buried beneath the noise. To the voice you used to whisper before you were trained to doubt it. Because healing, real healing, it's not just the absence of pain. It's the presence of power. It's the sacred act of standing in front of a mirror, worn and weathered, and saying, I know who I am now. Let me speak something plain. The cruelest scar the narcissist leaves behind isn't always the storm they caused. It's the split they created inside your mind. It's the way your soul starts tugging at two truths, one you lived, and one they demanded you believe. That confusion, that tug of war. That's not weakness. That's the trauma tearing at your center, trying to stitch reality back together with threads worn thin. But let me tell you about truth. It's relentless, like the tide, like dawn. It can't stay buried, not forever. No matter how many lies were layered over it, no matter how hard the narcissist spins their web of illusion. Truth rises. It always does. And that's what they fear most. That collapse of their story. That quiet crumble of the mask. And here's the miracle in the mess: your healing doesn't belong to them. It's not their story to tell. It's not their prize to withhold. It's yours. It's your war to walk through. Your altar to rebuild. Your light to reclaim. And friend, that kind of work, that's sacred. That's holy ground. I've seen too many souls trapped in what I call the burden reversal, where you carry their moods, their silence, their damage of while they carry nothing but their pride. That's not love. That's slavery in disguise. That's you lighting yourself on fire, just to keep someone else warm, and they don't even notice the smoke. Now let's talk about courage. Real courage. Not the kind that shows up in stories with trumpets and parades, but the kind that wakes up crying and still gets dressed. The kind that whispers, this hurts like hell, and still takes one step forward. That's the courage that rewrites lives. Leaving a narcissist. It's not just walking away from a person. It's walking away from a narrative. A false gospel that said you had to earn love by suffering. That you had to become smaller so they could feel big. That's the lie. And you are choosing truth over comfort. You're choosing you. And yes, the unknown is a storm. Yes, it's wild, but staying in the old place, that's a slow erasure, a soul starvation. You start fading without ever knowing it. That's not life. That's surviving in someone else's dream while your own sleeps in chains. So how do you rebuild? Start tiny. Start slow. Truth by truth. Breath by breath. Choose what's real, even when it shakes you. Choose what's kind, even when it's firm. And over time, those small choices turn into habits. And those habits turn into identity. And that identity, that's where the new you is born. You are not just recovering, you are reconstructing. You're rebuilding your house after the flood. And guess what? You get to pick every piece now. The colors, the doorways, the locks. You get to decide who walks in, and who never gets near the gate again. And when I think about that kind of resilience, I think about Solzhenitsyn, locked in a prison built by lies, and yet, he chose truth. When everything was stripped away, he still had the power to say, this is real, this is not. And it saved him. Not from pain, but from losing himself in it. That's what you're doing now. You're choosing the real over the familiar, the hard over the hollow, the authentic H over the fake smile. And that, my friend, is not just brave, it's divine. Now, don't expect this road to be tidy. A healing isn't a straight line. Some days, you'll rise like fire. Other days, a smell, a memory will pull you under. That doesn't mean you're failing. That means you're feeling. And that means you're alive. Pay attention to the quiet wounds. The flinch when someone raises their voice. The way you apologize for taking up space. The tremble in your gut when you say what you really feel. These are the bruises that need balm. And that balm, it's kindness. Not from others. From you. Because the goal here, it's not to get the hold you back. It's to meet someone new. Someone born of fire and faith. Someone who builds boundaries like stained glass. Strong but full of light. Someone who walks into a room and doesn't ask for permission to exist. And the greatest twist of all, the strength you needed to leave, it didn't come from them. It was never gifted. It was yours. All along. The narcissist didn't forge your courage. They just pressed on your soul hard enough that you had no choice but to dig until you found it. So stand tall, not because it's safe, but because you are sacred. Stand tall, even if your knees shake, even if your voice cracks. Stand because the life waiting on the other side is yours. And I'll leave you with this: the opposite of love. It isn't hate. It's indifference. And when the narcissist's chaos no longer pulls your strings, when their voice sounds like background noisy, When you look at their circus and feel nothing but silence inside. That's the moment you're free, and freedom. Real soul, born, wild freedom. That's worth every fight, every tear, every trembling step. Because freedom, that friend, that's where your new life begins.